Hello everyone and welcome to the Action Figuratorium. My name is Mark Major. I'm a real big toy collector here in the Southeast Portland area. And today is going to be a really fun video. It's going to go under the category of action figure photography, but I'm going to make it very entertaining, and it's going to be a little bit scholarly, people, because I actually went to college and I got a couple degrees and a large amount of debt. So we're going to see if we can work off some of that debt in today's video with my art history degree. We're going to be talking about poses and putting action figures in poses. We're specifically going to be talking about Contrapposto. I'm going to explain to you guys what it is, and I'm going to explain to you sort of what I feel the evolution of how we arrived at this Contrapposto that the Greeks supposedly invented and then gifted to the Romans, who then proceeded to do what Romans do with it. We're also going to go to the bench, and I'm going to give some examples of how you pose a figure with the Contrapposto, but we're also going to be talking about forms. We're going to be talking about how various cultures over various civilizations and years have depicted animals in the same poses to the point where they become a form. Even though you can put cats and dogs in all sorts of different poses, there seem to be certain poses that are specific to dogs, one specific to cats, horses, that kind of thing. And we're going to start off looking at that before we move into humans. So I want you guys to know that this is a big chocked full of info, fun video coming up today, and I hope everyone can, strap on the leather with me and, of course, hold on tight. Now for today, we're going to be using an insane amount of Google image search because it allows you to just see a whole bunch of kind of the same thing over and over again. It's a great way to stress, a sort of an average of how there's a lot of all the same thing going on. So what we're going to do now is, let me cut over this production level, people, of the show. At this point, you should realize that we are in one of the best produced shows within the action figure genre. Okay, so the first thing we're going to talk about is forms. We're going to talk about the form for dog. We're specifically right now looking at the Egyptian Anubis jackal dog as they are depicted in statues. And you can see, like here's one here and here's one here. And then, of course, they also have some actual dogs in poses, of course. Now, this is the traditional form in which if you have to show a dog, you show a dog sort of sitting down with all of its legs kind of flat out, a lot like a sphinx. And I know some of you are going like, well, I think the sphinx is a cat. Well, maybe it is, maybe it's not, but just know that in recent times, they've actually added all the bricks that make up the paws and the tail. That's not actually there. That's like 1920s, 30s, 40s they did that. It's just a big piece of sand with a head on it. However, there is some books that people have written, and of course some Reddit threads. There's always a Reddit thread on something in which some people believe that the Sphinx was a different statue that at some point was recarved because they think the head looks especially small on the body. And we can see this image here. Maybe it's about as big as we can get it. So you can see that the reason why people think that the Sphinx was originally a dog is because it's posed in the form for dog. All right, so you can kind of see where I'm coming from. It's a bit of a stretch. I'm just letting you know what other people think and feel, okay? Let's move on to cats, the form for cat. This is how most cultures depict cats, with them sitting on their hind legs and the front legs extended. And we can see a whole lot of different cat statues that all kind of look the same, don't they? And in fact, if we go over to lion statues, we see that the majority of the lion statues depicted here are kind of the same. Not all of them, not 100%. You can depict any of these cats and dogs however you want, but the general form, if you have to make a lion, you make it kind of like a cat where it's on its hind legs and its front legs are, extended, that kind of thing. But they have evolved the lion over time. You can see that there's some here where the lion has one paw up on a shield. There's another one where we get to see like this, where the lion has one paw up on some kind of a ball. This is sort of what you find outside of a bank a lot of times, like this one, right? We've got a lion with one paw up on a ball, and this is kind of like the evolution of this, what is known as lucky cat. Look at all these lucky cats. This is the way these cats are depicted now, kind of like the lion, sitting on its hind legs with one paw raised, one paw up, okay? This is a form. This is what I'm talking about. This is how different cultures depict the same animals sort of over and over again. All right, let's move on to human beings because we want to get to action figures, people. We don't want to go to sleep, and this is starting to become the cure for insomnia. All right, so we're going to go back to ancient Greece. That was influenced by, of course, ancient Egypt. And we're going to go to these very, very primitive early statues. These Korai, the Koros are the male ones. There are female ones as well, and you can see these statues. It's a naked dude, okay, and he's kind of like an action figure. His arms are down, straight, kind of like those Kenner action figures, but he's got one leg forward, and you can see in a lot of these different statues, they're all kind of the same. They're all sort of arms down with one leg forward. Now, why is this? Well, if you have two legs straight and the arms straight, you could confuse the person who the statue is of as being dead, okay? If you flipped it on its back, you've got a dead guy, right? But if you have one leg going forward, right, this person is clearly alive. It's kind of a Descartesian thing. I think, therefore I am. I walk, therefore I'm alive. In ancient Egypt, they referred to this as the traveler, the guy who just, the god who is just traveling through space. Maybe it's based on comets or asteroids or shooting stars or something. The idea of this god that just travels by walking endlessly, right? And so they depict people who are alive as being the traveler with one leg forward. They're moving, they're alive. Okay, so then the Greeks come along a little bit later, and just like you saw how they transformed the cat into the lucky cat by raising the paw, and I think that's genius. I think that's absolutely brilliant. What did they do? They came up with this term that they call Contrapposto. Now, Contrapposto is a way to depict somebody, right, who is not traveling. They are not in motion, but they are clearly alive. This is kind of ingenious, how you depict somebody who is not traveling but is alive, and this is the pose. What it is a type of balance where you can see that one leg is straight and is taking all the weight, and the other leg is kind of loose and bent. And then they sort of do their best to, in these statues, to balance out the left and the right. If one is loose, the other is, is kind of taut, and vice versa. So I think what we need to do is we need to head over and look at an action figure and see how we can take the concept of contrapposto, right, which you're going to use in your action figure photography, and we can apply it to an action figure that is not standing but is traveling. That is, we're going to take the contrapposto idea that's applied to a non-traveling being who's shown alive and put this into a moving being. So let's go over to subject cam, people. This is where, look at this, the production value of the show just continues to go up. I don't know how they do it. It's like there's a budget of a lot of money. So we have our happily ever after I figure. Now, the way this works is very simple. It's very easy to do. It's a simple system of balance. Let's take the right leg, for example, and let's get rid of that pink couch. Let's be, reasonable about this. So you take the right leg. If you extend the right leg forward, okay, then that means you have to balance the left leg equally by pulling it back, right? And then, as far as the arms go, you want to go completely opposite of what the legs are. So if the left leg is back, the right arm is back. And if the right leg is forward, the left arm is forward, right? So you get this kind of look, right? And the more you exaggerate it, like the further out we put the leg, The more we bend the leg, the more you have to balance everything else. The further back you put the other leg, the more you bend the other leg. The further back you put the arm, the more you kind of bend it, right? Same thing with this. With the left arm, we're going to pull it out and we're going to bend it up. With the right arm, we're going to pull it back and we're going to bend it down, right? So you get this type of weird pinwheel symmetry, right? But here's the other thing about this that you can do with action figures is that we've got obviously this axis, the up and down, and the left and right axis, how far out you can put something, how far up and down you can. But if we tilt the figure so we're looking at the head down, you could see that you could actually extend, swing out the arms this direction and balance it this direction. And same thing with the legs. We can now pitch the legs out like this, right? So that they are like an asterisk. Everything is coming off of the circle, the head in the center there. These are all sort of spokes coming out, and you can balance your figure this way. Now, this is perhaps the most fun to do and to take a figure that is superposable like Maffax or the SH Figure Arts, or of course these Monster High, Heavily or Happily Ever After High characters, really posable. So if you like doing these action figure poses, I suggest that you get one of those clear stands to hold them up, and you just put them in the craziest poses that you can get, and just have them sort of leaping through time and space, etc. That is how we apply the notion of balance to a figure in motion, specifically running, and I think it works out. So let's put her back on her chair where she can govern all that needs to be seen back there. And we'll cut back over to the main cam so that we can do our goodbyes and wish everyone the very best. Remember, people, when you're, doing your own thing, you're liking, subscribing, that's on your own time, okay? But the kind of thing that we can all do together, I think you know what this is. You want to stay charged, people.